You don't need another productivity system. You don't need a new app, a new journal, or another 10-step morning routine. You need a bedtime. The biggest, most profitable lie the modern world has sold you is that your problems are complex, that you need their solution, their course, their guru, because a confused person is a lifelong customer. But the truth is, most of our problems are not complex, they are just difficult, emotionally difficult. And we will invent galaxies of complexity to avoid doing the simple, difficult thing. This realization didn't come to me from a book. It came from a period in my own life of profound emptiness and confusion. I'm Sam Carter, and I spent years chasing complexity because I was terrified of the simple, difficult truths. This is what I learned when I finally stopped running. I learned that 8 hours of sleep and a daily walk outside will solve as many of your problems as any high-priced coach will. Ending that toxic relationship, quitting that soul-crushing job, having that conversation you've been dreading for a year. These are simple actions, but they require courage. And courage is a far scarcer resource than intelligence. We've known this for years. A massive meta-analysis on depression, looking at all the different treatments, found that the single most effective intervention wasn't a new drug or a revolutionary therapy, it was exercise, something available to every single one of us right now for free. The most powerful antidepressant known to science isn't locked in a pharmacy. It's freely available in the simple act of putting one foot in front of the other. So why is it so hard to take? Because it's simple, but it's not easy. But what happens when you do the simple things? When you're sleeping 8 hours, you're eating well, you're moving your body, and you still feel that gnawing sense of emptiness, that hollowness in your chest that tells you something is fundamentally wrong. That's when you graduate to the next level of the game. That's when you face the real dragon. Because if you don't choose your priorities in life, the world is going to choose them for you. There is a vacuum inside you where your values should be. A space that is meant to be filled with the things you have decided are truly important. And if you don't consciously, deliberately fill that space yourself, the world, society, your parents, your social media feed will rush in and fill it for you, and you won't even notice it's happening. I want you to imagine your identity, your soul, as a giant gumball machine. When you're born, it's empty. It's your job to fill it with your gumballs, your values, honesty, curiosity, compassion, adventure. Each one is a conscious choice. But most of us don't do that. We leave it empty, and so the world walks by and starts cramming its own gumballs in. The first one might be from your parents, a big green gumball called Become a Doctor. Then school adds a bright yellow one, Get good grades for prestige. Then social media force feeds you 1,000 tiny, glittery gumballs. Have a perfect body, signal your virtue, look successful at all times. One of the most common gumballs the world forces on us is the buy a house by 30 gumball. It's presented as the absolute benchmark of adult stability. You hear it at family dinners. You see it on your friends' Instagram feeds, the proud key-holding photo. So you start scrolling Zillow. You start stressing about down payments. You feel a sense of panic that you're falling behind. But what if your personal gumball, the one you truly want in your machine, is freedom? The freedom to move to a new city on a whim. The freedom from being tied to a 30-year mortgage. The freedom to invest your money in experiences or a business. The world's house gumball and your freedom gumball cannot coexist. One must be sacrificed. Another one is the prestigious job title gumball. The world screams that you need to be a senior vice president, a director, a manager of something or other. It's a race for LinkedIn supremacy, for a title that sounds impressive at a cocktail party. But perhaps your own gumball is mastery, the deep, quiet, often anonymous satisfaction of becoming exceptionally good at a craft. A carpenter doesn't need a fancy title. A great writer, a skilled musician, a talented coder. Their validation comes from the work itself, not from the label attached to it. Chasing the world's title often means endless meetings and politics, stealing time away from the deep work required for your personal value of mastery. Before you know it, your machine is full. It looks like a real identity, but none of the gumballs are yours. And you wake up one morning, you're 40, you're a lawyer with a big house and a fancy car, and you feel a wave of nausea. Because you realize with absolute horror that you have lived your entire life for someone else's approval. You have become a monument to the opinions of people you don't even respect. And the person you were supposed to be is nowhere to be found. So, let me ask you, what's one gumball value you suspect was put there by the world, not by you? Share it in the comments below. Acknowledging it is the first step. This leads us to a much deeper, more dangerous truth. Your values are not defined by the pretty words you post online. They are not defined by what you say you believe, or by what you like, or by what you pursue. Your values are defined by what you are willing to give up. Liking something is easy. Everyone likes honesty and courage. Valuing something is costly. The real, unvarnished definition of who you are is forged in the crucible of sacrifice. It is determined by one question and one question only. What are you willing to lose for this? If you say you value honesty, but you're not willing to have an uncomfortable conversation, do you really value it? If you say you value your art, but you're not willing to be misunderstood or rejected, do you really value it? If you say you value justice, but you're not willing to lose social standing for it, do you really value it? If you're not willing to be disliked, to experience friction, to be rejected, to lose something precious for your beliefs, then they aren't beliefs. They're preferences, they're decorations. They are not your gumballs. And there is no greater example of this than the man who was, quite literally, the greatest on the planet. In 1967, Muhammad Ali was more than a boxer. He was a phenomenon, the heavyweight champion of the world. He was handsome, charismatic, impossibly fast, and brutally powerful. He floated like a butterfly, he stung like a bee. He was on top of the world, a king in a world of mortals, beloved and feared in equal measure. He had everything, the title, the money, the fame. And then a letter arrived, a draft notice from the United States government. He was being called to fight in the Vietnam War. And Ali, based on his religious beliefs and his own moral principles, said no. It was a quiet refusal that landed like a nuclear bomb. The pressure that descended upon him was biblical. The government, the media, the public, the entire establishment turned on him. He was no longer the charming champion. He was a traitor, a coward, an ungrateful villain. They demanded he give up his principle to keep his prize. And in that moment, he faced the ultimate choice. His gumballs or their crown, his soul or his title. He chose his soul. And the consequences were absolute. He was immediately stripped of his heavyweight title. His boxing license was revoked. He was banned from the sport he had redefined, right in the prime of his athletic life. He faced a 5-year prison sentence. In an instant, the system that had crowned him crushed him. He lost everything a man in his position could lose: his career, his livelihood, his reputation, and nearly his freedom. For 3.5 years, he couldn't fight. The champion of the world was reduced to speaking at college campuses to make ends meet, an outcast in the very country that once adored him. But here is the profound reversal. Today, when we speak of Muhammad Ali's legacy, what do we talk about? Is it his knockout of Sonny Liston? Is it the thriller in Manila? Yes, those are parts of his legend. But his true greatness, the act that made him an immortal icon of integrity, was not a victory in the ring. It was that loss. It was that sacrifice. His refusal to fight in Vietnam proved that his gumballs were his own. He showed the world that true value is not measured by what you gain, but by what you are unwilling to lose. The sacrifice, the thing that cost him everything, is what ultimately gave him a legacy that will last forever. Now, you don't have to be Muhammad Ali. You don't have to face down the United States government. You just have to start saying no. If the mere thought of saying no to someone, a friend, a boss, a family member, fills you with guilt and anxiety, it's a sign. It's a sign that you have been trained your entire life to prioritize the comfort of others over your own needs. It's a sign that you lack what I call a conflict muscle. It's atrophied from disuse. And just like in the gym, you don't start by trying to lift 400 pounds. You start small, incredibly small. Decline an invitation to a party you don't actually want to go to. Tell a friend you don't really like that restaurant they always pick. Politely refuse to take responsibility for a co-worker's mistake. State a mild, unpopular opinion in a low-stakes conversation. When you do this for the first time, your nervous system will scream at you. You will expect the world to explode. You will anticipate anger, rejection, abandonment. And then nothing happens. The other person says, "Oh, okay," and they move on. The world doesn't end. And in that silence, in that non-explosion, you will have the most profound thought. You will think, "My God, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? I could have saved myself so much pain." Every time you say a small no, you do 1 rep for your conflict muscle. It gets a tiny bit stronger. And over time, you can handle more weight. You can start saying no to bigger things. You can set real boundaries. You can begin to gently but firmly remove the world's gumballs from your machine and replace them with your own. Of course, knowing all this is one thing, doing it is another, because action requires stepping into uncertainty. And that's where our 2 biggest enemies live: fear and failure. So let me leave you with a final philosophy, a new operating system for your mind. Truth number 1: fear is a choice. You think fear is an external force that happens to you. It's not. Confidence and fear are both just stories. They are narratives you tell yourself about a future that has not happened yet. That's it. One person looks at a job interview and tells themselves a story of failure and embarrassment. Another person, with the exact same qualifications, looks at the same interview and tells themselves a story of opportunity and connection. The anxiety feels the same for both. High performers, champions, the people you admire, they feel the same fear and anxiety as everyone else. They have simply learned, through practice, to stop believing their fear story and start believing their confidence story. You are not a victim of your fear. You are the author of it. You are choosing to be scared. Truth number 2: failure is progress. You imagine failure as a catastrophic crash. You picture your life's stock chart suddenly plummeting to 0, leaving you broke and destitute on the street. This is a fiction. It's not how it works. The reality of growth looks like the stock market on a good century. It goes up, then it dips slightly, it goes up further, then another small dip. Every failure is just a small correction on a long-term upward trend. You are never starting from zero again. You are starting from the new, higher level that the previous attempt, even the failed one, brought you to. A successful person isn't someone who avoids failure. A successful person is simply someone who has tolerated more failure than you have. They've taken more shots, more dips, and kept going, knowing that each one raises their baseline. And this brings us to the final, liberating truth. Even a man like Abraham Lincoln, who saved his country and is immortalized in stone, was crippled by severe depression and debilitating self-doubt his entire life. The struggle never, ever goes away. The goal is not to get rid of it. Growth isn't about eliminating your fears, it's about being fearful of bigger, more important things. Happiness is not a life without problems, it is a life with better problems. And success is not the absence of failure, it is the pursuit of better failures. Your job isn't to win the game, it's to choose the game you want to play. A game so meaningful that you are willing to lose and lose and lose again just for the privilege of playing. If this resonated, subscribe. It's the only way to make sure you don't miss our next conversation. And if you believe these ideas matter, a simple like helps them find others who need to hear them.